All right guys, it is January 8th and deer season here in Michigan is just wrapped up a little over a week ago, and I could not be happier with the season that we had. I was able to harvest not one, but two nice bucks that I'd been chasing all season long, and was able to wrap up my 30th season, can you believe it, 30 years chasing whitetails, with a nice mature doe on the last day of the season, December 31st. That being said, with the above average temperatures and no snow on the ground, we're not about to miss the opportunity to dive deep into the farm, go places we normally don't go, to see if we can find the most recent MRI from this year's rut to find next year's target buck. So I thought I'd take you guys along with us, show you places on the farm most people don't get to see, and show you exactly what we're looking for and why. All right, so the first thing I like to do, usually either the night before or the morning of, is pull up my Hunt Stand app or Onyx or whatever you're using in eScout, go in deep, see different spots that maybe you've overlooked, look for pockets, look for pinch points, look for funnels, and then you can mark those and then find them when you're out scouting. So that's the very first thing I did last night, spent about a half hour really diving deep into that. So let's head out and see what we can find. I think one thing that people really overlook is actually looking close. Take a look at this right here. I know when that rub was made. You see how close it is to my house. And I actually know the buck that got shot that made that rub later that morning. My neighbor shot him. We'll show you a clip of that a little bit later. There's so many spots that are overlooked, and that's like why I want to walk out, because we'll be able to see the trails that the deer are coming through right up here close to the house and all the way back in there. You can see just about 75 yards off my house and about 20 yards off the neighbor's driveway. They're using this like crazy. The bucks were rubbing up in here, coming in and out of here all season long. Well, you can see there's a ton of tracks. They've been in here this morning yet. So there'll be 4 or 5 spots down this lane where they're just crossing right in and out of here between ours and the neighbors. The neighbors have done a really good job managing their properties as well. They've got it pretty thick in there, and they'll put in some small food plots, and then the deer will come out here to the destination alfalfa field for their evening meal. But all these autumn olive bushes that they say are invasive and people hate them, they really haven't crept out into our fields at all. They've been here for 20 years, but they make great cover. So I'm actually a little bit of a fan. Yep, now you can see right here, they've been coming out in and out of here. Check this out. This is a pretty big tree. It's got a pretty nice rub on it. So, and that's up pretty high. I think I know the buck that made that, and he's actually #1 on our list for next year because he made it through. All right, this is exactly what we're looking for. Now I know when this was made too, and this is another nice big apple tree. It was made about the second week of November, because I come through here and noticed when it popped up. Well, that's a nice big buck. You can see all the shavings down here are actually on top of the leaves, which means he was rubbing this in the rut after the leaves have already fallen. So this is definitely a rut buck. And if you'll notice, he's actually got, well, first of all, look here, this is a historical rub, okay? That's important. This is what I wanted to see. This limb, or this tree came down. This is just like hinge cutting a tree or falling one. This tree came down this year. That's why he took this spot over and has made this his bedding area. It's the same buck that made that rub up there on the neighbors. He's the Big 10, and he's a dandy. He actually rubbed on this great big ash tree. You don't see that very often. He definitely took this over as his bedding area, which is smart. He could see us coming in and out right there. We're right here, and we're gonna slip up in through the woods. There's some bedding areas up in there, so we're gonna go up beside them, the back side of the woods, and up and around to a couple of our sanctuaries, and we'll see what we can find. We don't go in there typically unless we've shot a buck, or right now we're looking for fresh sign for next year. So you can see we're basically following right on a deer trail right back in here. And I want to see if there's some sign in a buck bed up in that corner, because the does will bed closer to the field, and then you got some younger bucks, and the bigger bucks tend to bed right back in the corner or back onto the neighbors. Now we're starting to see some sign. That's the biggest thing I'm looking for really on this preseason scouting is fresh sign. I mean, historical sign is great because it lets you know they're coming back year after year, but right now I'm looking for fresh big buck tracks, fresh beds, fresh rubs, and at least rubs that have been made in the last month and a half. So I know it's been done pretty much within the rut. When we get into these swampier areas, these swale areas, we're looking for these mounds where the land comes up a little bit and the deer will bed right up on these little high spots. Gives them just a little bit of a vantage point and keeps them up out of the water. Look. Just kind of seeing, trying to figure out exactly which trail they're taking in and out of that swamp. One thing I do like to look at is how clear it is, and one thing oh, okay, now I'm seeing a little more of what I wanted to see. Sometimes you just got to get down to their level. There's a tree tore right up, a smaller tree right in front of me. There's another rub right over there. This one here. And this has been since the leaves have fallen. Some big droppings there. But what I was looking at is how clear it is through our woods. And that's one thing we're really working on this year, is thickening that up so that these bucks feel more comfortable bedding up into there a little bit further. I was thinking it'd be a little more frozen than this. We just weren't back far enough. Where they're coming out is down there, which is fine. I do want to scout up here a little bit because I thought I saw some fresh sign about a week ago, actually. That's what I was looking for. So they're using this trail right here. It's very possible this could be the same buck that's making that fresh sign up by the field edge that we looked at, because this is going right over to that swale hole. And I saw all these rubs about 3 weeks ago, and they all just popped up within a few days. And you can see this trail, the does probably used it this morning. Comes up over here, and wait till you see what's over here. Nice scrape. They're still using it. You can see the deer tracks in it. They've nibbled that right off. Score! Lost my coffee cup doing firewood. I'm so excited. Now, young bucks will rub on smaller trees like this, but young bucks usually don't rub that high. So I'm pretty sure that's probably the same buck that we're after right there. This is the trail. Here's a historical rub. Yep, this is where the buck's coming in, up and out of that swamp. Okay. It's a lot easier to set up on them when you know exactly where they're coming out. And that can change from year to year by 50 yards, 75 yards. And that's why I like to come out here postseason and see exactly what's going on, because a different buck with a different personality may take a different route. One tip that I do have is when you do find new sign that you're not aware of, if you're hunting new property, mark everything. If you're hunting a property you're used to, when you find new sign, make sure you mark it. When I'm planning my preseason scouting, is I do take into consideration the wind. I'm not afraid of blowing stuff out, but I'd like to see them before they take off. So if you go and the wind's blowing into the bedding area, they'll be gone. You'll never see them when you're walking through. If we're quiet enough and the wind's still kind of blowing in our face like we're hunting, we may actually see some deer. So we'll see. That's kind of the plan. The wind is coming out of the southwest today, so that sets up perfectly for us to walk through the farm without being winded in front of us. We might get lucky and find an early shed. I know we just got pictures 2 nights ago of bucks still holding their antlers though, so this isn't really a shed hunt, but we'll obviously keep our eyes peeled. So here, this is pretty cool. We've got a scrape here that the deer made. Obviously, we're using that as a licking branch, but you can see the turkeys have been tearing it up in here. It's good for us to see that too, because we'll definitely be out doing some spring turkey hunting. Now, I actually hunted for the buck that I shot on opening morning, I hunted a stand just on the other side of that swale in a triple maple tree the night before I shot him opening day. And for a few days, off and on prior to that, and I just couldn't get him during daylight. He finally slipped up November 15th. And we're just going right up and through there. Yep, they like to bed right on the other side of those, and we're same thing up in here, they'll bed. But prime example, they didn't wind us, and we were right there, you know, so. It's a nice rub. A lot of these rubs were actually made early season. You can tell. Yeah. Any scrapings are probably under the leaves on this one. There's a deer bed. Another deer bed. There's actually, look like probably some does bedded here. There's 3 or 4 beds right here close. This is kind of the main trail that connects the bedding area in that swamp on the east side of the farm all the way through these woods down the middle to the west side. But there's also a trail that runs down on the bottom and a trail that runs up top. And I just saw off this trail down here, come take a look at this rub. This was a sight to see. Wow. Yep, did a number on that one. You can see there's a trail coming right up out of the swamp there. So that's really the point to coming out here this time of year, because you can see the trails that they were using recently and set up next season, because they'll be using them again because there's a reason they're using them. There's a rub there, there's a rub there, there's a rub there, there's a rub there. Yeah, yeah, there's a bunch. See, so what happens is the does are filtering in and out of the swamp out to the food area, or out to the cornfields there, and these bucks will run perpendicular, checking for scent signs during the rut, and that's exactly what's happening. Snapping the trees right off. Holy cow. You want to talk about fresh? I'm talking like probably within the last couple days. You think they're not still active? Nice rub, licking branch, fresh scrape. Prints in there. You can see the antler marks. There's fresh droppings from today. So that's fresh. That'll end up being a community scrape that they'll probably use all season. These great big community scrapes that they will continue to use for communication all year. It doesn't mean the buck's going to be on them every day, but it definitely means that they're in the area. Where I don't really hunt over scrapes thinking they're going to come scrape on it. I hunt around scrapes knowing that they're coming through the area. This will be an ideal spot to do some shed hunting in about a month and a half. We are going to walk down in there a little bit further, but I wanted to come out here. You can see there's a bunch of old rubs on the edge. I haven't walked out in here all year. One of their main trails obviously going in and out of there. See, a lot of the times the bucks they won't use the same exact trail that the does are using. They'll be off them 10, 20 yards, kind of by themselves. I think you can navigate this without getting wet. Look at, now that's a tree. Look at over there. Look at that, right over. Buck stood right on the creek. That's what we're looking for. Is that crazy, dude? Well, we know where he's crossing. This is another thing we really want to zone in on. I don't hunt back in here a lot, but if the wind was right, could sneak in here for one sit to get it done. I gotta get a shot of this, man. It's freaking incredible. This is ideal. See, there's a whole layer of cover there and a whole layer of cover in front of it, so the does are able to bed just off it, or even on the other side of that small food source, and these bucks are able to come right back in here, have room to mosey around, plenty of woody browse, and not a soul in sight. This has been roughed up in the last couple days for sure. This makes my heart flutter. Here's another one of those intersections. As a buck, you couldn't ask for a better spot to bed. You can see anything out into that field, comes up out of that trail, stands right here, rubs, and you can see everything. And you can stand right under the apple tree, get a snack. There's that tree there's rubbed right up. There's another fresh scrape right here still being used. The wind would have to be perfect. Everything would have to be perfect. But I'd like to set up in that big cherry tree right there. Yeah, it almost seems like a no-brainer. The trick is actually getting in here, getting this close to his bedding and getting a shot. It's got to be in position for the right wind, but I love to saddle hunt more than anything when I'm bow hunting out of a tree. So I'm always looking for trees that either have multiple limbs, large limbs, 2 or 3 at a minimum, and usually limbs that are almost as big as I am. So if you glance down through there, you can see that's all bedding area before you get to the swampy part. It's all bedding down and through there, and that's where the does typically like to bed. So it makes sense that the bucks are back there in the thicker, woodier browse. The does will also bed right up in here, but you can see there's some buck rubs up in there. This is a good spot though. They have their water. Big ridge drops off down into a bowl there, so it's a good thermal hub to get them out of the wind. They can bed on either side, 3 different sides of that bowl to stay out of the wind. It's fresh, but look at, bucks are just tearing this up. Use this on the daily. Oh, those are real fresh. Those are probably within the last hour. Probably bump some does up out of here. See all these tracks. They're using this pretty regular. It looks like a cow herd. These are the fields that I typically hunt during gun season. See my box blinds right over there. That I shot my buck out of in that far field. And I shot a doe out of that same box blind the last day up in this field. It's bigger than my hand. It's 4 fingers, don't even cover it. That's a big track. That is a big deer. That's a mature buck for sure right there. I've been looking and all I've been seeing are the small buck tracks and some doe and fawn. That's the track I'm looking for. Curious to see where that goes. When you find a mature buck track, follow it. Just follow it, see where he goes. You'll learn more about that individual deer than just about any other way I know possible. Good staging area spot. I'm sure there's a bit of sparring that goes on back in here. It's a nice open spot. Cover all the way around it. Again, we don't hunt it typically, but it's a spot that potentially could be hunted. It may be a good spot to bring in brush in a ground blind, honestly. It's a big old historical right here. Another one there. Nice intersection, fresh rub right up in there. This is a good spot. There's some rubs up in there. I saw this on when I was doing my e-scouting last night. When you're looking at the overhead, you can zoom in and you can actually see the trails that cut through these grasses. And when you see a cross or an X, you know that's 2 trails coming together, and more than likely a good spot to set up on. See, it's all just tore up. You know, when you see all the sign on the interior of the sanctuary, it's real easy to want to dive right in and hunt that exact spot. But I still think the smartest approach, figuring out where they're coming in and out of those spots and setting up on the edge. Better off figuring out where they're bedding, where they're traveling to, and try to catch them in between there. We're on the edge of this whole bedding area. We've got these oaks that are still holding their leaves. And if you look underneath these oaks, every one of those trees either has a rub or has a historical rub on it. It'd be a lot smarter for me to sneak up the edge of the woods, playing the right wind, and setting up to kill this buck about 30 or 40 yards, well, maybe right here. That would be the tree, because Well, we know all those rubs are right there. Before I forget, I've never even hunted this back corner of the farm because I've always stayed out of it. So I'm gonna pin this big cherry tree. It's got 3 big limbs, almost as big as I am up there, about 10 feet. That's all the higher I like to hunt. So this tree will be perfect. Looked like a buck was rubbing on that tree, snapped it right off. These are all broke off. So you can see this main trail they're using. They're using this clearing. They had cleared this years ago for the power lines or something. Must be coyote kill, unless somebody shot it. That sucks. Young buck. Somebody probably, well, hard to say. Could be coyote kill, but somebody probably shot it and didn't find it. These are almost perennial scrapes. So there should be another big one down there. You can see they just got the trail beat right down through here because they will pop right out of here and pop right out of there. And the bucks will walk down through here with a predominantly west wind and scent check that whole thing. This is a historical rub and a new rub from this year. You can see they just sit right here underneath this, looking out over there. Just rub the heck out of it. This is interesting. And this is what I wanted to see. I'm glad to see that fresh scrape up there, but there is usually a big scrape under here, and that doesn't appear to be the case this year. And that's why we check. That's why I come in every year, because things can change from year to year, even on the same property. So you can see, I've only got a couple ladder stands on the farm because I usually do like to saddle hunt or hunt off the ground. But I did sit this one time, and you can see right down here behind it, the trees are shredded. So again, this is probably the same big buck that we found the sign in the very beginning on the other end of this swale. But you can see, geez, we got here, all tore up over here, all throughout here, almost all of these trees. I'm real happy with everything that we found today. I found some great sign and some great spots. Some I knew may be there, some totally took me by surprise. So I think we got enough intel today to definitely put together a plan of attack. We found a few habitat deficiencies that we can probably work on and put together a good plan for the mature bucks that I know we can target for next season, because I know they're still there. So I appreciate you guys coming along. We'll see you on the next one.